What if I told you that one Family Feud episode became so intense that Steve Harvey had no choice but to stop the show entirely? Welcome to Harvey's Highlights, where we dive into the unforgettable moments that make television shocking, emotional, and downright unforgettable. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story like this. The scene started like any other high-energy Family Feud game. Two teams, each packed with competitive family members, faced off under the studio lights. Laughter, banter, and the usual playful teasing set the tone. But as the questions progressed, something began to shift. Tensions rose, and small frustrations that normally stay buried in good-natured competition began to bubble to the surface. It happened during a seemingly simple round. Steve asked, "Name something people grab first when they walk into the kitchen." Answers came quickly: utensils, coffee, fridge door. But the buzzer on one side of the room went off before the contestant could finish speaking. A teammate shouted over, "No, that's not right." The other team responded with teasing laughter. What started as playful ribbing quickly escalated as voices grew louder, hands gesturing, and personal space was ignored. Steve, sensing the shift, tried to calm the situation with humor. All right, we're playing a game here," he said, raising both hands. "We don't need a wrestling match over forks and plates." But the tension didn't dissipate. One contestant leaned aggressively toward another, and suddenly, shoving broke out between two family members. The audience gasped, and murmurs rippled through the studio. Steve's reaction was immediate. "Whoa, WHOA," he shouted, stepping between the teams. His voice carried authority, and for a moment the families froze. He turned to the camera, gesturing toward the crew. "Cut the cameras. Stop everything. Nobody is moving until we figure this out." The production team acted quickly, hitting the pause button on filming, while Steve addressed both teams with the sternness only he could summon. He spoke slowly, making sure every word landed. "Families, this is not how we do it. You come here to have fun, to compete, and maybe to win, but you do not disrespect each other like that. No pushing, no shoving, no yelling in my studio. This is about showing the world what family spirit looks like, not what happens when people lose control." The contestants, initially resistant, started to calm down. One young man muttered, "We didn't mean for it to get that serious." Steve turned to him with a piercing stare. "Intentions don't matter when someone's getting hurt or scared. We stop now, we talk, and we make sure it doesn't happen again. Is that clear?" Heads nodded, and a tense silence settled over the stage. The audience, holding their breath, watched as Steve continued. "I don't care if it's the championship round. I don't care if the prize money is at stake. I'm responsible for everyone's safety here, and if you can't handle yourself, you don't play today. Do you understand?" One contestant finally said, almost whispering, "Yes, Steve. We get it." Steve gave a slow nod, visibly relieved. "Good. That's how we get back to playing the game. Respect, people. Respect." The tension that could have ruined the episode began to fade, but the weight of the moment lingered. Steve walked through the teams, separating those who were still heated and speaking to them privately. The camera crew and producers exchanged glances. They all knew this episode would be talked about for years. Even after the pause, the energy in the studio had changed. Steve, now back at the podium, turned to the audience. "You know, sometimes we forget that these are real people with real emotions. Competition can bring out the best and sometimes the worst, but how you handle it, that's what counts. Let's continue the game the right way." The cameras were ready to roll again, but everyone knew this wasn't just another Family Feud episode. It was a lesson in patience, control, and the power of leadership under pressure. The families now approached the game with a newfound respect, answering carefully, joking lightly, and keeping their hands to themselves. The round that followed had a completely different feel. Laughter returned, but it was mixed with an awareness of what had nearly spiraled out of control. Steve guided the game with a steady hand, making sure the contestants remembered the earlier lesson. "Remember," he said, smiling but firm, "it's just a game. Fun first, competition second. Always fun first." By the time the episode ended, Viewers at home and the audience in the studio had witnessed something extraordinary. Not just a game, but a live demonstration of conflict, authority, and resolution in real time. Steve Harvey's quick thinking and commanding presence turned what could have been chaos into a story of respect, patience, and control that would be remembered long after the cameras stopped rolling. The episode would later be shared across social media, with clips highlighting Steve's intervention and the moment he literally stopped production to protect both contestants and the spirit of the game. Fans debated, laughed, and marveled at the drama, cementing this family feud moment as one of the most intense in television history. As the cameras remained off, Steve Harvey walked slowly between the two teams, his presence alone commanding immediate attention. "Look," he said, raising his hands. "I don't care how much you want to win. Winning isn't worth someone getting hurt or embarrassed in front of millions of people. We're going to settle this right now, calmly." One contestant, still fuming, muttered under his breath, "I wasn't even trying to shove him that hard." Steve's eyes narrowed. "Not trying doesn't matter," he replied firmly. "Intentions don't keep people safe. Actions do. You're here to play a game, not audition for a boxing match." A mother from the other team spoke up, her voice shaking. "Steve, it just got out of control so fast. I didn't think—" Steve held up a hand. "I get it. I understand. But in this studio, under these lights, with this audience, we don't get to just react. We have to think. And right now, that means taking a breath, stepping back, and treating each other with respect." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle in. Then, turning to the audience, he said, "Y'all watching at home might think this is just a family argument, but what you're seeing is real-life lessons. Respect, patience, and self-control. That's what matters." Meanwhile, the contestants started talking quietly among themselves, some apologizing, some admitting that the competitive tension had overwhelmed them. A teenage contestant whispered to her father, "I didn't mean to push him, Dad. I just got so nervous." Her father put a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, honey. Let's just calm down and get back to the game." Steve, watching these interactions, nodded approvingly. "That's it," he said. "Notice how they're calming each other down? That's what you should always do. That's leadership. That's what makes a family strong, even when you're on national television." He then turned back to the contestants directly involved in the shoving incident. "Look at me. This stops now. You are not going to let a game break your family apart. You will play hard, answer fast, laugh loud, but you will do it with respect." At that moment, the studio felt a shift. The tension that had been building like a storm cloud began to dissipate. Even the audience, who had been holding their breath, let out a collective sigh of relief. Steve continued, "Let's make sure this is the last time we ever see this in this studio. We are family feud. We are supposed to be having fun. And fun doesn't come with shoving." One contestant, still embarrassed, looked at Steve and said, "Steve, I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me." Steve put a hand on his shoulder and said softly but firmly, "Apologizing is good. Owning it is better. Now let's see if you can win this game without losing your head." Finally, after several minutes of calming, rearranging, and making sure everyone understood the rules of conduct, Steve called out to the production team, "All right, cameras, we're ready. But this is your one chance. Everybody in position, everybody composed, everybody respecting the rules. Let's play Family Feud the right way." As the game resumed, there was a noticeable difference. Laughter returned, but it was tempered with caution. Contestants answered questions quickly but kept their hands to themselves. The energy was competitive but controlled, the kind of tension that makes viewers lean forward in anticipation without fearing an actual fight breaking out. Steve took a moment during the next round to remind everyone, "See? This is how it's supposed to feel. Fast, funny, exciting, but safe. We can all enjoy this without stepping over the line." The audience clapped and cheered, impressed not only by the contestants' recovery, but also by Steve's ability to manage a situation that could have derailed the entire show. Viewers at home, meanwhile, were sharing clips of the pause and Steve's intervention, commenting on his quick thinking and leadership. By the end of the round, Everyone had found their rhythm again. Families laughed, joked, and high-fived one another, but with awareness. Steve, smiling yet vigilant, said, "That's how we finish a game the right way. Fast answers, big laughs, and no drama that hurts anyone. That's Family Feud." The pause, the confrontation, and the resolution had transformed the episode into something unforgettable. It wasn't just a game anymore. It was a demonstration of how to handle conflict, respect boundaries, and lead under pressure. After the cameras started rolling again, the atmosphere in the studio was noticeably different. The energy was still lively, but it carried a new weight of respect. Steve Harvey walked over to the center of the stage, addressing both teams with a measured tone. "I want to take a second here. Y'all did something remarkable. You calmed down, you listened, and now you're ready to play the game. That takes character." A contestant from the earlier shoving incident looked at Steve and said quietly, almost to herself, "I didn't realize how out of control I got. Thank you for stopping it." Steve nodded, acknowledging her sincerity. "That's exactly why we had to pause. Sometimes you need to step back before you step forward." The host then turned to the audience and remarked, "You know, this is what makes live television unpredictable. You can't script moments like this. And it's not just about laughs. It's about real lessons for real people." The crowd responded with applause and nods, many whispering to neighbors about the rare honesty and emotion in the moment. Steve moved to the other team and asked the father of one of the contestants, "How do you feel right now, seeing your family calm and focused again?" The father took a deep breath. "Honestly, Steve, relieved. I was worried it was going to get ugly, but you handled it. You reminded us what matters." The teenage contestant who had pushed someone earlier spoke up. "I feel embarrassed, but I'm also proud. Proud that we didn't let it ruin the whole show." Steve smiled warmly. "Exactly. That's how life works too. You make mistakes, you own them, and you keep going. You learn from the bumps and bruises." During the next round, Steve noticed the participants were visibly more careful. He joked, "All right now, hands to yourselves, folks. If you're gonna win, let's do it with your brains, not your elbows." The audience laughed, the tension finally easing into genuine fun. One contestant whispered to her teammate, "I think I understand now why he stopped the show. It wasn't just about the shoving. It was about teaching us to respect each other." Her teammate nodded. "Yeah, it's kind of inspiring, actually." Steve then turned to the camera and addressed viewers at home. "I know some of y'all are thinking, it's just a game, but let me tell you something. Family, friends, respect, patience, understanding. Those are the things that matter more than winning. And if you need to learn that lesson on national TV, so be it." Meanwhile, the production crew exchanged glances, impressed at how quickly the families had adjusted. One crew member whispered, "That's never easy to recover from, but Steve made it look natural." Another replied, "Yeah, he's more than a host. He's a teacher in moments like this." During a commercial break, Steve approached the contestants who had clashed. "Look, y'all handled that like grown folks after I paused. I'm proud of you. But remember this, these moments stick with people whether you're on TV or at home. Handle them right, and people will respect you." As filming resumed, the remaining rounds were played with a surprising intensity, but also a newfound awareness. Contestants laughed more genuinely, cheered each other on, and even when the competition heated up, the earlier shoving incident lingered as a reminder to maintain control. Steve walked to the center of the stage for a final word before the last round. "Y'all see how much fun this can be without anyone getting hurt? That's the kind of energy I want every time we play Family Feud. Fun, competitive, and most importantly, safe. Remember that." By the time the show wrapped up, the families hugged, laughed, and congratulated each other. Steve shook hands with every contestant, offering a mix of humor and heartfelt advice. Keep those hands to yourselves, but don't hold back on the laughs. That's the balance right there. The episode ended on a high note, but the story of the pause, the confrontation, and the lesson lingered in the minds of everyone watching. Social media exploded with clips of Steve intervening, audiences applauding, and contestants reflecting on the moment, praising his ability to manage a tense, potentially dangerous situation with wisdom and humor. After the show resumed, the energy in the studio had transformed completely. The families were now more aware of how quickly things could spiral out of control, and every contestant seemed to carry a newfound respect, not just for each other, but for the game itself. Steve Harvey, noticing the change, leaned into his role as both host and mediator. He looked over at one of the contestants, a teenage boy who had been involved in the earlier shoving, and asked softly, "How are you feeling right now, son?" The boy hesitated, then admitted, "Honestly, a little embarrassed. I didn't think it would get that serious." Steve nodded. "It happens. What matters is how you handle it next. You already took the first step by calming down. That's maturity." Across the stage, another contestant, the grandmother of one of the shovers, whispered to her daughter, "I was so worried for a moment. I didn't know what Steve was going to do." Her daughter replied, "I know, but stopping the show probably saved a lot of feelings." Steve overheard this and chuckled, saying, "Sometimes, a little pause is all it takes to bring people back together." During the next question round, the families were intensely focused. Contestants laughed, strategized, and cheered each other on. But there was a clear sense of mindfulness. Every move, every answer came with a consideration of the impact it might have on others. Steve, observing the changes, spoke directly to the camera, almost breaking the fourth wall. "This is why I love hosting. You never know when the game will teach real-life lessons. Today, it wasn't about the points. It was about respect, patience, and thinking before you act." The audience, which had initially been tense, now erupted in genuine applause after each round. People were clearly moved by the transformation, and many whispered comments about how rare it was to see live television shift from chaos to reflection so quickly. During a commercial break, Steve pulled aside a couple of contestants who had clashed. "I want you to know something," he said seriously. "The way you recovered is what people will remember, not the shoving. You showed that you can own your mistakes, and that's more important than winning any game." One of the contestants, a father whose son had been involved, nodded. "I think I understand now. It wasn't just about the push. It was about respect, about showing everyone, especially the younger ones, how to act under pressure." Steve smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Exactly. That's what life teaches us. And if it takes a national TV pause to get that lesson through, so be it." As the final rounds played out, Steve interjected with his signature humor, keeping spirits high while still underscoring the importance of composure. "All right now, remember, no shoving, no arguing, and if you feel like it's getting heated, breathe. You got it? Good. Let's play the game." The families laughed, the audience cheered, and the tension that had earlier threatened to boil over was replaced by camaraderie and excitement. After the game ended, Steve gathered all the contestants at center stage. "Look at this," he said, gesturing to both teams. "You came in with a little fire, a little energy, and you walked out with respect, laughs, and memories. That's what it's about. This is Family Feud, yes, but it's also life." The contestants hugged, shook hands, and even shared lighthearted jokes about the earlier incident. One teen, still smiling, said, "I'll never forget that pause, Steve. It really made me think about how I act." Steve laughed and replied, "And that's exactly why we had to stop. Life's lessons are sometimes hidden in the funniest, wildest places." By the end of the episode, the audience and viewers at home had witnessed more than just a game show. They'd seen a real-time lesson in accountability, reflection, and the power of stepping back when emotions run high. Clips from the episode went viral online, with viewers praising Steve's ability to balance humor, authority, and compassion in an unpredictable live environment. As the cameras prepared to wrap, Steve Harvey gathered both families for a final word. The tension from earlier had completely dissipated, replaced by laughter, smiles, and even a few tears. Steve looked around the stage, taking a deep breath. "You know," he said, "this show isn't just about the points or winning prizes. It's about people, relationships, and how we handle ourselves when things get heated. Today, you all showed growth, and that's what really matters. One of the contestants, a father whose son had been involved in the earlier scuffle, stepped forward. "Steve, I just want to say thank you. I didn't think a game could teach my son such a big lesson about respect and thinking before acting. This is something he, and all of us, won't forget." Steve nodded, clearly moved. "That's exactly why I do this. Life teaches lessons in unexpected places. Sometimes, it's right here on this stage." Another contestant, the teenage boy who had been part of the pushing incident, chimed in nervously. I feel embarrassed about what happened, but I also feel like I learned something really important. Watching how everyone reacted, and how you handled it, Steve, it really made me think." Steve crouched slightly to meet his eyes. "Son, embarrassment is temporary, but lessons like that last a lifetime. You owned it. You apologized, you reflected, and now you're stronger. That's what matters." The grandmother from one of the teams leaned in and said quietly, "I never thought a game show could feel so real. I came here thinking it was just fun, but it turned into a real lesson about patience, respect, and family." Steve smiled warmly. "You see, that's what Family Feud can do when people let themselves feel it, and not just play it." During the final commercial break, crew members and producers commented among themselves about how intense the episode had been. "I've never seen a show pause like that and actually have the impact it did," one producer whispered. "Steve handled it perfectly." Another added, "It could have gone badly, but you could feel the change in the air when they came back. It was almost like the studio itself took a deep breath with them." When the episode finally aired, social media exploded. Clips of Steve stopping the show, his serious yet compassionate words to the contestants, and the family's reflections went viral. Fans praised Steve for balancing humor with authority and applauded the contestants for how they handled the situation afterward. Many viewers wrote comments about how they had watched the episode with their own families, talking about how to handle arguments, control tempers, and take accountability for actions. In interviews afterward, Steve shared his thoughts on the incident. "Look, we play a game here, but people are real. Emotions are real. And if a moment teaches someone to stop, think, and respect the people around them, then that's bigger than any score or prize. That's why I stop the show when I have to. Because the game can wait, but life lessons can't." For the contestants, it became a day they'd never forget. Parents hugged their children tighter. Teenagers realized the importance of self-control, and both teams left the stage with a stronger sense of empathy. Even the audience left buzzing, many commenting on how rare it was to see live television handle conflict in such a mature and meaningful way. By the end of the night, one message was clear. Family Feud wasn't just a game show. It was a stage for teaching life lessons, showing accountability, and reminding everyone watching that respect and composure matter more than winning. The episode would later be remembered as one of the most powerful in the show's history, a moment when Steve Harvey proved once again that his instincts as a host went beyond comedy. They touched hearts and taught lessons that went far beyond the television screen.